if you were invited to give and agreed to give a TED Talk, but you couldn't give it on venture capital, couldn't do investing, couldn't do career advice, what might you give your TED Talk on?
Probably regulatory capture.
Okay.
I have this core belief that capitalism and democracy will eventually destroy one another.
Could you also just define regulatory capture at some point? You don't have to do it right now.
Yeah, I do. I mean, there's a Wikipedia entry for it.
Just the basics for folks.
But there's a famous professor from Chicago, and I forget his name, like 1958, that wrote this seminal report. But basically, in a heavily regulated industry, the incumbents typically end up being the ones that write the legislation and typically lock themselves in, build competitive advantage, build a moat, back to Michael Porter, through the use of legislation and make it harder for startups to break in. Mm-hmm. One of my favorite examples, the Obama administration came up with this program where they spent $44 billion paying doctors to implement EHR systems. And the idea that you would pay someone to implement software when you need to do it on your own for your own competitive survival. But there was a healthcare advisory board, the CEO of Epic sat on that board, and they came up with this program.
What is Epic?
It's the leading provider of healthcare software. Yeah, exactly. It's not, but like once they came up with this program, the thing that you would obviously think is, well, what's wrong with paying someone to use software? Well, they probably won't use it. So then they put up like another $20 billion for the second phase called meaningful use, where if you proved you were using the software you got paid to implement, you get another check. And it's mind numbing. And this stuff is everywhere in our government. Like I said, both sides of the aisle, everywhere. And, Citizens United did not help. It made it way worse. And our government would be way better if you could somehow extract these powers from the government.
So if you could wave a magic wand and get some things moving to act as some countervailing force to reduce regulatory capture, what would you do?
And by the way, we have really broken industries with the most regulated pharma, banks, telcos. These are the ones. I mean, like, look at the banks. 5 other industrialized nations have moved to insta transfer run by the government between banks. In the UK, it's called UK Faster Payments. It happened 17 years ago. You can read the Wikipedia page on it. ACH in America still takes 3 days to clear. It's fucking ridiculous. But it's because the banks and Visa have too much power with the Financial Services Committee, and they've prevented. Powell wants to do it. It's called FedNow. It's been on the books for 10 years, but they block it because of how we operate. Yeah. The first thing you would do, and no one will agree to it, is you reverse Citizens United. There's too much money in the system. You can go to Open Secrets, I think it is, on almost any one of these decisions, and you'll see, you can just watch the Financial Service Committee. Someone argues against FedNow, and then you look them up, and there's a big bank in their region, and that big bank's the donor. It's not rocket science, but that's where I'd start with some kind of reform. One of my first experiences this would definitely be in my TED Talk. One of my first companies I worked on that had a potential regulatory hurdle, a lawyer told me, oh, well, you should talk to these congressmen or whatever. And so, do you want me to introduce you? Sure. And so, he's going to get a phone call. He's going to be in your neighborhood. Can you get a bunch of people in a conference room? And I'm like, what do you mean a bunch of people? I just wanted to say hello. No, I need you to get 15 people in the conference room. I go, why? He goes, and they all need to bring the maximum check that they can donate. And I'm like, really? So I call a few people. I felt horrible. Oh yeah, you got to give 10 grand. I just want to talk to this guy. And then a week before they show up, they go, your spouse can give too. Tell everyone their spouse can give. And so this happened to me 3 times. 3 times to meet someone in Washington.
So dirty.
You need to get 100 grand together, just to have the first meeting, and that's real.
That's a great speaking fee.
Yeah, no, that's how it works. And so I don't know. you look at things like the healthcare system, they're just so messed up. It's not a free market and it's not single payer. It's the worst of both, and it's the best of neither.